they're making a deal. Whether down at the crossroads or Hollywood and Vine, they're making a deal. Gonna have it all for a moment in time. You may be a kingpin drug dealer who wants the competition out of the way. You may be an elite politician who wants total control and a power play. You may be an aspiring entertainer who wants to have their name in lights. You may be a four-star general who wants the upper hand in a global fight. They're all making a deal. With the chief light bearer from the other side, they're making a deal. It's an alternative thing for one hell of a ride.
If you would like to hear Night Dreams Talk Radio on your local radio station, let them know. Tell them to check out www.nightdreamstalkradio.com, and thank you. Do you have a paranormal story you want to share on Night Dreams Talk Radio? You could be a guest. Email us at nightdreamstalkradio@gmail.com.
Coming to you from some far point station, like a cosmic tumbleweed, both north and south of the Pleiades. Here's your host, Gary Anderson.
And that is me, along with James here tonight. And we're just waiting for our guests to, check in. And then we're going to talk about, all the different cryptics and all this stuff, what is going on. And we'll get reports and we'll just jive talk about it here for about 2 hours. I don't know. You're in a laughing mood, aren't you, James?
You're funny tonight. You're going to do some jive talking tonight, buddy.
Well, after last night, yes, I need to do something.
Oh, my goodness, you're funny.
No, I'm not funny. I tell you, you know what funny is?
Tell me.
Washington, D.C. That's all I'm going to say. Okay, guess what? We got our guest on right now. And let's bring him on. Who do we have out there?
Hello?
Well, do we have Tobias out there?
Yeah. Hey, Gary. How's it going?
It is going really, really good. After last night, anything would be great today.
What happened last night?
No, I don't want to go into it. He's probably listening. And I feel bad. I feel bad for the guy. But you know what? If a person wants to be a guest on the show, 2 things I'm going to recommend. One, if you're trying to push your book, you can't just get on a show and not talk about your book because it's not going to be anything interesting. So you got to divulge some stuff about your book.
No.
Yeah. So, if you get somebody on that doesn't want to go into it because they're scared that you're going to give the plot away and nobody will buy it. No one's going to buy it unless you open up about your book. And it's just the way life is. You guys know that.
Oh, of course. Honestly, one of the most frustrating things for me, just as a fan of the paranormal, is listening into a radio show or podcast, and you'll have somebody on there trying to sell a book, and they must have so little content in that book that they're just terrified to talk about any of it. But I got to tell you, if you can give away everything worth knowing about a book in an hour or 2 hours or whatever, then I don't know how you filled in all of the pages, frankly, because you just shouldn't be able to do that.
No. I mean, I was telling before when we first got on the air, 2 years ago, I had a guy, his agent, his publisher, was sending me emails like every other day. You need to get this guy on. It's a hot book about, zombies. And, this is when, because zombies were at its peak with The Walking Dead. And saying, you got to get this guy on. It's a great book. I get the guy on. I book him for 2 hours because I believed what his publisher said. And I'll tell you what, I get him on and I ask questions and he goes, well, I don't want to say anything. And I go, what do you mean? He goes, if I talk about my book, no one's going to buy it. All I got out of him in 2 hours was, the parents died. There was a brother and sister. They looked out their window and they saw zombies. That's all I could get in 2 hours. So I quickly grabbed one of my children, or adult children, and said, here, there's another microphone, get on. We talked about every zombie movie we ever thought of, ever watched, for 2 hours. And I tell you what, I had the highest rating I ever had at that time, because everybody loved it. They thought it was a comedy show. But I tell you, when you get a guest like that, what are you supposed to do? I mean,
I've been through that before, and it's normally someone who has a publisher who sets the booking up for the show, and you've got to really go right to the author and talk to them about what exactly they're going to be discussing or want to discuss.
Oh, yeah.
Then go from there.
Yeah. But then again, I've done that. And I don't know, maybe it's because they're scared. Sometimes they'll even lie and say, well, I've been on, a whole bunch of shows on podcasts. You get them on, and then afterwards you say, well, how many podcasts or shows have you ever been on? Honestly, yeah. Yours was the first. Yeah, why did you pick my show?
Yeah, it happens.
Yeah, but you know what? When you're behind the microphone doing a live show at that time it was like 2 hours. That's bad enough, but you talk about sweating bullets. You sweat everything.
Oh, I'm sure. Absolutely.
So, what have you guys been up to?
Oh, I don't know. I've just been busy. I'm getting a lot of reports. I know Tobias has been, starting to sell his book, so I know he's been busy. But as a group, we've been getting a lot of interesting reports.
Anything new? And this Mothman thing is like, there was a report up here I'm in Washington, but next to us, Oregon. A couple of weeks ago, there was a sighting in Oregon of a Mothman.
Yeah, we get them all over. I mean, quite frankly, this winged humanoid phenomena, regardless of what exactly the details are of what it looks like, there are a lot of them out there, and it's just not concentrated in the upper Midwest. Even while we were getting the reports in Chicago and the environs of Chicago, we were getting reports elsewhere. So, it's something. I guess because the reports in Chicago, people are opening up about other sightings. So, yeah, we are getting a lot of them.
Right, and Lon makes a very good point there. As much as the focus has been on Chicago specifically regarding these Midwest, or as I've taken to calling it, Lake Michigan Mothman sightings, the fact is that the popularity of those reports really has led to more sighting reports coming in from everywhere. We've taken reports from coast to coast, frankly, and it's really kind of eye-opening, I think, as far as the phenomenon goes, because one of the most common things that witnesses will tell me is they had no idea that anybody else was seeing this, like just none at all. Guys like us, we've heard of John Keel, we've read the Mothman prophecies, like we're familiar with the 66 to 67 Point Pleasant sightings, but honestly, you get outside of the paranormal community, or even honestly, very far outside of like our specific niche in just the general paranormal community, and people don't know about it. It doesn't have the same kind of widespread popularity as something like, ghosts or UFOs or even Bigfoot. And so when people have these sightings, they don't know where to go with that. Frankly, they just assume that that people are going to think they're insane because they don't know anybody else is seeing this stuff. But very, very luckily, because Chicago is such a hugely populated city, the sightings there got a lot of attention, and what that's really done is it's let a lot of people know that they aren't alone in this, and there are other people seeing it, and it's really inspired people to come forward, and honestly, that's been a real blessing, I think, because at the end of the day, people just want to talk about their experiences with people who aren't going to laugh at them,
Well, it's hard. I mean, like in my case where I ran into a Bigfoot back around the early 2000s, I kept my mouth shut for many years because why? I figured if I told anybody, they'd do the same thing my wife did when I came back and she had a huge dent in her brand new car. She didn't believe me. What happened? And that's the problem. So if you see something, creepy, like a hairy man, Bigfoot, or a Mothman, or Thunderbird, and you report it, you're going to get ridiculed. I hate to say it.
Yeah, absolutely. That's all. Honestly, one of the most common things that I hear from people is, well, this is sort of the basic narrative. They'll see something, they'll go home, they'll tell a loved one or close friend, get laughed at, and then just never speak of it again until they find an organization like the Singular Fortean Society or Phantoms and Monsters, or any other investigator who's going to just take them seriously, who's just going to listen to them.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's true. I mean, even when I have guests sometimes, I mean, how do you distinguish which one is like lying or trying to sell a book, and they just basically wrote nothing but a lie, or somebody that actually saw one? I mean, I don't know. Do you think Thunderbirds or Bigfoot, or, well, I do say Bigfoot exists because I saw something that wasn't my Aunt Bertha, but it's a Mothman. Again, I mean, why aren't these people, when they run into one, like I asked Joe when he was on my show, because it was Taylor who, puts dinosaur bones together in Texas. One of his friends supposedly ran into a Mothman. The first time she stopped the car, didn't hit it. The second time she hit it. Why didn't she go, I asked him, I said, why didn't somebody tell her, go to the local sheriff's department and have them check the front fender and the bumper for DNA? Nobody thinks about that.
I don't even know that they would, honestly. And, I get that question quite a bit, and I'm sure Lon is in the exact same boat here, where people will ask, hey, why didn't they call the police? Like, why aren't people calling the police? And the fact is that I think even in the mind of the, general populace, even people who don't necessarily have a huge interest in the paranormal, everybody is aware of what happens to people when they have an anomalous sighting and they go to the police, and that leads to media attention. And the next thing your life is ruined. And I think people know that. And beyond that, I think that people are pretty aware, at least generally, that this isn't necessarily a problem for the police. In a lot of these cases, obviously not that woman who, maybe hit something with her car that might at least have been reported. But in a lot of these cases where somebody has a sighting or something, no crime was committed. I've got this 911 transcript from a guy down in Woodstock from earlier this year who had called 911, and good on him for doing it. But all it really did was prove that, he took his sighting seriously enough to call 911, because, of course, by the time that sheriff's deputy got